Hereditary is a new horror film from A24. This one is directed by Ari Aster, who previously did a short film called The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, which I love. This film stars Toni Collette, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff, and Millie Shapiro. And in this film, they played the Graham family. They attend the funeral one day of their grandmother, and ever since they've been to that funeral, they start to notice weird things. They're not quite sure what these things are. Maybe it's just in their heads, or is it actually happening? Strange things are going down, and to make matters worse, this family, I wouldn't describe it as dysfunctional. They're just very weird beforehand. They're not really together as a complete family beforehand, so this weird stuff is now happening around their house. Their family starts to get a little bit more disjointed, and I'm not going to say anything else about this film because, wow. I walked into this film not knowing what to expect. Sure, I could have just listened to what critics were saying in the trailers, like, this is the scariest movie since The Exorcist. That was like one person saying that, but of course, since it's in the trailer, now the stigma is this movie thinks it's the scariest thing ever, which it was just one guy's quote. And I think it's pretty stupid to just listen to like one review quote in a trailer and just judge the movie on, is it the scariest thing ever? No, it's not. That maybe the movie sucks now. Like, come on. So I don't like to listen to like the critic stuff in the trailers. I just kind of like to watch the movie on its own and see how I feel about it personally, not let any other outside influences get in my way, because I've had some iffy history with the A24 horror films, at least. The Witch, I thought was decent. I didn't love it though. I thought it was a solid movie. It Comes at Night though, I think that was a big disappointment though. I was expecting a lot out of that and I just got a mediocre kind of film. This movie I was really excited for because, like I said earlier, The Strange Thing About the Johnsons is a short film directed by Ari Aster, and I thought that was great, like totally unexpected. Thanks Double Toasted for the recommendation. But I just didn't know if this director was gonna transfer to film very well, if it was just gonna come off like another It Comes at Night, just kind of mediocre. I just didn't know what to expect, but it looked great from the trailers, so I walked in just wanting to just see how it unfolds for me, and I loved it. Loved it so much that I changed my wallpaper to it on my iPhone. This movie was fantastic. Like I mentioned earlier, this family is never fully together. Even when the film starts to open up in the beginning, there's always a sense of there's something off about them, like what's wrong with them right now. Like you never really feel like these characters are ever in a good place, especially since the movie opens with them going to the grandmother's funeral. And because you open up with that, you automatically get this feeling of, alright, what's gonna go wrong? Like you're automatically put into this feeling of something could go wrong any second now, especially with a family like this, which is a pretty realistic portrayal of some families. I wouldn't say like every family, but I've definitely been to other people's houses and seen other family members and experienced some of the similar attitudes and tones of voices expressed by these characters in the movie. Like Toni Collette especially, which I want to give a huge shout out to her. She was excellent in this movie. She is phenomenal. Like, I know she's not going to get nominated for an Oscar because they hate horror films, whatever. She's excellent in this movie. She is so good here. And what makes it great is that she reaches a breaking point very early on, and you're like, how is she gonna go on with the rest of the movie after having this happen like only 20 minutes in? And to see how her character goes about for the remainder of the film, it's quite great. It's so thrilling, and what amazes me so much is that at certain points, Toni Collette reminded me of not just my own mother, but of other mothers as well. Like, just, not obviously every action, but like certain tones in her voice. The way she kind of talks to her son Peter at one point when he asks her if he could go to a party. Like, the way she kind of talks to him there, I'm like, I know I've heard that. I know I've heard that from real life, so Toni Collette was able to bring a sense of realism to this. Of course, there are going to be some people who are going to look at her performance and be like, what is this? She's acting like so over the top, what is this? I saw that as real. Like, every single scene of her in this movie, she has a realistic performance set into this obviously fictional horror film, but it's so realistic you can buy into it, and you feel like if you pluck this character and put it into a drama film, separate from the horror, it would still work. The performance would still work flawlessly. And that's a huge testament to the kind of talent that Toni Collette brought to the table in this film. The fact that she's not going to get recognized for this, it's sad. it honestly is really sad. And what makes her performance really work as well is Gabriel Byrne working off of her. He's the dad who just wants peace. He doesn't really want to solve any issues. He just wants people to stop arguing. He wants people to just be at peace and be happy, but he doesn't want to get his hands dirty and actually let people sort things out. And I thought Gabriel Byrne was a really great balance to what Toni Collette brought in this film. And of course, there are some people that I've heard at least say that Gabriel Byrne was a weak character as the dad. They didn't really like him, thought he didn't do much. I thought that for his character, the way they set him up, just a peacemaker, doesn't want any drama, just wants sanity in his life. I thought that worked flawlessly, because you gotta remember, this is not a family that is fully functional. This is a family that isn't perfect at all. There's not one family member that is absolutely right on something. Like I said, Gabriel Byrne, he's a good balance of just wanting peace, but like I said earlier, he doesn't want to necessarily fix anything. You can tell that. He just wants people to move on, and that's not what's really great for some people. And some people, of course, will think, well, that's just a bad dad right there, and I think that's exactly the point, is that no one is fully acting the way that you would, but you know you've seen this happen before in real life. It's not something that's completely written out of the blue just for the sake of making the movie work. Like, you know you've seen this before. Alex Wolff as Peter particularly impressed me in this film. I mostly remember him from Jumanji last year. I'm not sure if I've seen him from, like, anything. All I remember is Jumanji, and he was fine, because he was a small role, whatever. This film, however, he very much so impressed me. Like, at first it's just kind of very subdued, like kind of typical teenager. Something happens, though, and it kind of affects his character throughout the rest of the film. And from then on, I became really, really impressed by the kind of acting chops on him, because he has to go through a lot dramatically, and I think that that kind of role requires a certain actor that can pull that off. Alex Wolff perfectly did it. Like, I loved him. Loved him in this movie. So good. Big thing though, Charlie, played by Millie Shapiro, particularly very much so impressed me, because they treated her character in a way that I wasn't expecting. You can watch the trailer of this movie, and you can assume what's gonna happen with her. Like, you can just automatically, blindly assume, like, oh, she's gonna be the creepy girl in the movie, like something in the vein of The Exorcist or Ouija Origin of Evil, right? Not particularly the case. Like, you just hear the... and you automatically assume, that means she's possessed, like a demon, scary baby, ah! Like, that's not fully what's going on. If you just blindly assume they're trying to make this girl scary, like overly scary, like something like the girl from The Exorcist or Ouija 2, then you're missing the point of the character. The way they treat her in this film, I wasn't seeing it as they're trying to make her terrifying or scary. They're just showing, once again, another family member at such a young age who is acting weird and not acting like a normal kid. But you know that there are kids out there who probably have done certain things that she has done too. And like I said earlier, if you watch the trailer, you can expect something out of this character, but if you actually see the film, you'd understand, like, oh, they're actually not doing that, and they're doing something different. Okay, and I really love the approach to all of these characters in this film. The entire Graham family I loved. I love how they were written. I love how they were acted. I love the actors playing them. It's one of those movies where you genuinely get attached to the characters involved, because they remind you of people that you've seen in real life now put into a horror film scenario, and I really love that. That kind of relatability, the thing that you know you've seen this before, and now seeing how they have to interact with this crazy stuff going on. I love that. And speaking of the horror in this movie, Ari Aster, well done direction, my man. Oh my god. There's a lot of creepy moments in this film. And a lot of people might say it's for shock value. I'd say no. Every shot in this film has a purpose. Everything had a purpose in this film, and it paid off beautifully. And I also love how this director actually got to scare me and the entire theater that I was in. There's like maybe like 1 or 2 moments where like a sound effect would play whenever a scare happens, but number 1, that's like 1 or 2 moments of that, that's a miracle. And also 2, it's for something that's actually genuinely terrifying, so I'm good. Besides those 1 or 2 moments, you just have the camera cut to something and you're just looking at it, and there's no sound effect to just kind of show it to you. It's not doing anything like vicious or like attacking you. It's just there. There's something in front of you now in frame, and the camera just cut to it just like it would cut to another person. Like, they didn't make a big deal out of the scare, and it's just there. And that's what's genuinely scary, is when they treat it like it's normal. And what also makes this work is the Wes Anderson, like, perfect symmetry kind of cinematography going on here. Like, every single shot, I was looking in the corners, like, making sure, like, okay, I'm making sure that there's nothing there, anything over there. Like, this movie had me, like, searching every single frame, so that when there are actually moments when there are things to spot, it freaked me out even more, because I felt like I was one of the first people to notice it, and I was, because I could hear other people in the audience, like, slowly starting to, like, gasp, like, oh, there's something over there, like, after I had found it earlier, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's so many shots like that, too. There's stuff in the background, but the lighting, like, the dark lighting, beautiful lighting here, it's tricking you into thinking, like, wait, is that actually, like, oh, yup, there's something there, oh my god. Like, there's two shots in particular like this. One where you can almost barely notice it, but I felt like I was seeing it, and then a couple seconds later they revealed, yeah, there was something there, Jackson, you got that. But then there's another one that has been haunting me ever since. If you are scared of your room at night, there's a shot that is just for you. Wow, oh my god, I've never been more scared of my room than what I have after seeing this movie. This is also one of those horror films where the slow burn effect actually works a lot. And of course, some people will just say, well, a slow burn, that means it's gonna be boring. Not necessarily. Like, yeah, like, there are other horror films that use the slow burn effect that can be a little boring, like, kind of lose your interest, but I was fully engaged with the entire story. Even when there was normal stuff going on, not only was I just paying attention, like, just, like, bracing myself just in case something does happen, something weird happens, I'm bracing myself, but also I was just really engaged with the characters' story, like, their drama, because they go through a lot. This is a family drama. This isn't just made as, we gotta make a horror film. This is made as a family drama with horror elements creeping in. And that's the best. For example, The Shining, sure, it's a scary movie. It's my favorite horror film ever made because of how scary it is, but also because at its center, its core, it's a family drama between this family of three. A father who is struggling with his mental health. Like, that's a family drama, and when the horror elements start to creep in, makes it even worse. Very similar to how the family drama is treated in Hereditary. As soon as the horror elements start to get in there, it starts to make the drama even more so increasing and bigger. And I love that. You can tell that there's definitely some inspiration from classic horror films like The Shining, like, also because of cinematography. Like, if you look at The Shining and Hereditary, there's certain cinematography moments with that perfect kind of symmetry that are very similar. You could tell that Ari Aster was inspired by many great horror films to make this, and that's another reason to appreciate his talent alone. So overall, what happens when you have a technically well-made horror film and also a greatly written family drama? Combine those together, you get an excellent film, because I loved Hereditary more than I've loved any film that's come out so far this year. So far, I know it's just June, but Hereditary is my favorite film of the year. This movie made me feel things that I haven't felt in a horror film or any film in a long while. Holy crap, the acting is so great. Some of the best acting I've seen, especially from Toni Collette, who is phenomenal, and I will count as a snub if they don't nominate her for the Oscars because she's that good. The story is so well written and the horror elements are introduced to it so well, and also the horror filmmaking is superb. Ari Aster going from just these couple of short films to now a big 2-hour movie that had me hooked all the way through because of his talented filmmaking behind the camera, the perfect cinematography, the perfect score that haunts you whenever you hear it, the perfect scares, the perfect kind of scares, and also this film, when it gets to that ending, no spoilers of course, I've heard some complaints saying, wait, that's it? That's it? And I was watching the ending thinking, what do you mean that's it? That's like, what? Like, how can you think that's it when you see an ending like this? Like, I think back to how the film started and how it progressed, and seeing where it ends up, it's like, I think it's kind of perfect. It's the perfect kind of tragic horror film with so many great horror filmmaking moments. I can't help but love this thing. Like, my only flaw, if I could have a flaw with this movie, is that there's one scene where I could notice that there is some obvious ADR going on. That doesn't affect my experience, like, whatsoever. Like, that's such a small, minute thing about the film. How can I possibly downgrade Hereditary for that? In case you guys haven't already guessed it, I'm gonna give Hereditary an A+. It may not be the scariest horror film ever made, like a lot of people like to publicize about it, but it is such a freaking phenomenal horror film. The characters are so well done, so well realized. The actors are perfect for them. Ari Aster, please make more movies because you are genuinely talented in so many ways. The cinematography, the score, lighting, everything about this movie I love. And honestly, even though this movie is quite disturbing and it's not going to be an easy watch for a ton of people, maybe not for me, but I'd love to watch it again just to experience that feeling of I just stumbled upon a new classic. And I know maybe some other people won't feel that way, but for me, this is up there. If a film can remind me of certain feelings I had while watching The Shining, my favorite horror film ever made, then you've done fantastically in my book. But if you've seen Hereditary, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.